Bonjour Romain.
Bonjour.
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 So welcome everyone to this side event about the project Compet'plus on smart specialization strategies in cross-border regions. While we are going to wait just a few minutes for all the people that registered to enter the room, we wanted to share with you that this side event has available interpretation in Spanish, French, and English. So besides, at the end of the screen, you have the interpretation button, like a globe, and you can choose the language you want to hear the whole presentation. You will also be able to, as this is also a discussion, not only a presentation, you can share all your questions and thoughts in the discussion button. And moreover, as we want it to be quite participative, we will share with you some questions during the event. And for that, you will only have to click on the following link. So we are just going to wait one more minute and then we will be starting the side event. So we are going to get starting. So welcome everyone. Again, you have the interpretation and I'm going to go ahead with the discussion and give the floor to Madame Isabelle Boudinot, who is a representative of the region Nouvelle-Aquitaine in France, one of the regions that participates in this project, but she's also a member of the Committee of the Regions, President of the Commission Coter for Cohesion Transport, and she's also coordinating the EGTC platform where all Euro regions, we are there. So as from the Euro region, we are quite aware and in relations with her. So we will give you the floor.
Merci beaucoup. Je vais m'exprimer en français. Donc, bonjour à tous.
Thank you very much.
C'est vraiment un plaisir pour moi d'introduire cette rencontre, ce side event de la Semaine européenne des régions et des villes. Donc, d'abord, un mot effectivement sur l'importance de la collaboration frontalière au sein de cette Coter. Vous avez cité que je suis présidente de cette commission du Comité des régions en charge de la cohésion, du transport, du budget, mais aussi vraiment très coordonnatrice d'une plateforme des GECT, et on rassemble et on échange entre nous beaucoup de ces questions de GECT, car c'est vraiment pour nous une priorité. On a ainsi, avec les coopérations transfrontalières, une véritable démonstration de la valeur ajoutée européenne. C'est vraiment des lieux où on peut montrer que sans l'Europe, on n'arriverait pas à ce degré de coopération.
That we are reaching great levels of cooperation in the European Union. So it's necessary to reinforce that cooperation.
Une expérience très enrichissante. Les frontières, Arola l'avait parfaitement dit quand il y a eu l'événement GECT à Innsbruck. Ont été vraiment les premières touchées par la crise du Covid. On a pu voir à cette époque qu'il y avait un repli sur chacun des États membres et les difficultés que ça a généré pour les citoyens transfrontaliers, ceux qui devaient travailler, ceux qui devaient échanger au quotidien. Et ça, c'est vraiment une démonstration qu'on doit aller plus loin dans cette intégration européenne et qu'on doit vraiment prendre en compte
So this
ces
shows that we have
problématiques
to
du
go beyond
transfrontalier.
this European
C'est
integration. We need to bear in mind
une
that
priorité
we
au
have
sein du comité des régions.
cross-border
C'est pour
problems,
cela qu'on
and
a
this is one
lancé
of
en
the
décembre
priorities
2020 une
at the
consultation
Committee of the
dont est
Regions.
sortie une
And that's
résolution
why
sur
in
l'avenir
December
de la coopération
2020, we
transfrontalière qui
launched
a
a
été adoptée en
consultation
juillet
that
2021.
resulted
Donc juste à
in
temps
a
pour formuler des
resolution,
recommandations
a
dans le cadre
decision
de la
adopted
conférence sur
in
l'avenir de
June
l'Europe.
2021
Le constat est
about the
rapide, il y a de trop
cross-border
nombreuses
space.
barrières, notamment
And this has
administratives,
been
et
taken
de
into
barrières qui restent
account
dans les mains
when
des États.
working on the
Mais la
future of
volonté des
Europe. We've
territoires
realized that there
transfrontaliers
are a
est
lot of
extraordinairement forte,
cross-border
présente et continue.
barriers that
La
depend
discussion que
on the
vous aurez ce
different
matin en est la
states.
preuve. Et merci à tous
I
les
am
participants
sure
encore une
that
fois.
today's debate
La preuve que
will
les régions
show how
transfrontalières
strong
apportent aussi leur
you
pierre à
all are.
l'édifice des priorités européennes, de relance
And I
durable,
think
d'économie
that
intelligente,
all cross-border
durable et inclusive.
instances, all
Elles peuvent
cross-border
produire cette
players
valeur dont
are there
je
to
parlais en
help
créant de
build
véritables
Europe in
écosystèmes
many fields. And I
transfrontaliers.
think they can
Et malgré les
generate
nombreux
value by
obstacles
creating
administratifs, je l'ai dit.
cross-border
Par
ecosystems.
exemple, sur les
And in
stratégies de
spite
recherche et
of the
d'innovation,
many administrative
on a vraiment là
hindrances, for
un
example, when it
cadre
comes
qui
to
montre qu'on peut
research and
dépasser
innovation strategies,
les
I think
contraintes
this is a
nationales
framework, this is a
et que
topic
dans
that
les
shows
territoires
how
transfrontaliers, on peut
much
avoir
further we
des
can go when it
complémentarités
comes to
entre les structures de recherche,
transnational and
entre les
cross-border
deux tissus
agreements. I
économiques.
think
Donc
cross-border
justement, nous allons
spaces
en
can
parler ce matin.
help us
C'est
complement
avec
each
cette
other
idée que le
on an
projet
economic
interreg
level
POCTEFA
between
Competitive
research
Eco était né en
centers and so on
2016,
and so forth. So
cofinancé
with
par les
this
fonds
idea
FEDER
in mind,
Interreg
the
POCTEFA.
project was
Ce dernier a
the
atteint ses
competitive
objectifs
eco
initiaux et peut
project
même aller
was
au-delà.
created in
Ainsi, les
2016
trois
with
pôles
FEDER
transfrontaliers,
funds,
Innov
the
Medica,
European
Big
Regional
Dacia,
Development Fund,
Additive
and
Valley,
3
des
cross-border
clusters, des
poles
centres
were
technologiques et de
created.
formation réunissant
In the
87 entreprises ont été
medical
créés et
clusters were
pérennisés par un
created,
partenariat
a whole
public-privé,
economic
mais
fabric
aussi une
was
vingtaine
created and
d'opportunités
maintained
d'innovation, une
thanks to
plateforme
this
d'innovation avec 6
public-private
établissements de santé
partnership.
des 3
There
territoires.
was also
Aujourd'hui
a
clôturé,
platform with
c'est un nouveau projet
6
qui prend le relais, le projet qu'on appelle
institutions and
Compet'plus.
companies
C'est un projet qui
from
vise à
all 3
promouvoir la
territories.
compétitivité des
Competitive
entreprises et
Echo is
l'innovation
now
dans les
working
PME
on
par le biais de la
Compet'plus,
coopération
which seeks
transfrontalière.
to
Il
accompany
prévoit aussi de
SMEs
mesurer
through
les flux
the
économiques entre les 3 régions et d'identifier des
cross-border
PME, des
collaborations.
startups et centres
It
technologiques
also aims
présentant
at
une forte valeur
identifying
ajoutée
small
dans
and
les 4 domaines
middle-sized
convergents
enterprises,
des
research
RIS
centers
3,
that
soit
have an
l'énergie,
added
la
value
mobilité,
in
le
all
secteur
4
agroalimentaire
big
et
topics:
les industries
energy,
créatives.
mobility,
Le
agro-food,
but est de
and
créer
creative
2 plateformes
industries.
d'innovation.
The objective
Mais ces 2
is
exemples
to
ont été
create 2
construits sur mesure pour son territoire.
innovation
Or,
platforms.
l'idée
But
aujourd'hui est
these
d'échanger des
examples
idées,
have
notamment
been
sur des
created
initiatives
almost à la
similaires dans
carte,
d'autres
almost upon
territoires transfrontaliers.
demand in
Discuter,
these territories.
partager,
So the
échanger,
goal now
c'est
is
aussi ce
to
qui
create
apporte de
similar
l'innovation
initiatives
et
in other
permet de
places. So
contourner les obstacles qui
debating,
ne sont pas
discussing, and
forcément
sharing
sous le contrôle des régions,
experiences will
mais de
help us
faire
all, and
notre
that
lobby
is
auprès
also a
des
way
instances
to
nationales et
overcome
européennes
the
pour lever
challenges
ces
that
obstacles.
are not under
Donc
the
n'hésitez
control
pas à
of
faire
the
remonter vos
regions
conclusions au
and
comité des
create
régions
cross-border
qui
lobbies
garde
to
toujours une
put
oreille
an end
extrêmement
to these
attentive
hindrances.
auprès de vos
So
initiatives et de vos besoins.
be aware
En
that
tout cas,
we
vraiment,
are going to
merci et je vous
be
félicite pour
right
votre
by
présence
your
à cette
side. The
rencontre.
Committee of the
Je
Regions
remercie les
is very
organisateurs et je
attentive
vous
to
souhaite
all your
d'excellentes
initiatives.
discussions.
I would like to thank the organizers for this side event, and I hope you have a very interesting morning today. Thank you very much, Isabel, for this introduction. And now we will hand the floor to the next speaker to open the debate, Benyat Haragi, who is the head of Compet'plus, but he was also head of the Competitive Echo project. He will tell us about their history and the many possibilities ahead of us. So without further ado, you have the floor.
Bonjour à tout le monde, je vais aussi m'exprimer en français. Voilà,
Good morning, everyone. I will speak in French. You can see my presentation on the screen. So we're going to share with you what we can do in the area of the smart specialization strategies in cross-border regions. My presentation will be divided into 4 parts. First of all, I will share with you the Competitive Echo project. I will talk about the cross-border polls, and then I will focus on Compet'plus, which is the current project. As for a Competitive Echo, we can say that this project was developed between 2016 and 2019, thanks to the FEDER funds and thanks to other cross-border initiatives, Vientiane Chamber of Commerce, because the Chamber of Commerce is a very strong partner, and these made it possible to create that cooperation between the 3 regions. To sum up the goal of Competitive Echo, we could say that it's about the cross-border cooperation and the smart specialization. The initial objective was to create 2 cross-border clusters. The most interesting thing in this initiative is that we applied 2 different approaches. First of all, a bottom-up approach. We created 2 committees, a strategic committee with the participation of all 3 regions, Euskadi, Navarra, and New Aquitaine, to work on an analysis that had been performed by Orchestra, one of the partners of the project, and take a look at what the 3 territories had in common and what we could work on together. And then there was the pilot committee with all the 3 regions, and we identified 3 sectors: advanced manufacturing, agro-food, healthcare, and a 4th one, 4 areas in which we could collaborate and cooperate. And then we moved on to diagnose the innovation needs that we had. We interviewed small and middle-sized enterprises, and we asked them what they needed help with and what they thought was the economy of the future. We held 112 interviews, and that's how we came up with the 16 topics. Thanks to this method, the method applied by all the partners, the 3 development agencies, the 2 chambers of commerce, Orchestra and Sodena. This is how we were able to identify 3 clusters that could be creative: Innovmedica, Big Data, which works with the medical devices, and additive value. So with the lessons learned, we realized that there was a bottleneck phenomenon. There was a great deal of stakeholders, 2,500 contacts that went down to 1,000 participants, 1,000 entities that wanted to participate in our workshops. We also shared the results with them, and that's how we reached a number of 250 involved entities. That is 250 entities that analyzed why a collaboration was needed, what had to be done, how, and what the goals were. And that's how we reached the number of 88 partners, mainly innovation platforms. So 88 partners which signed a commitment to work on a cross-border level. At the end of the project, that is in May 2019, 40 members responded a survey on the continuation of the project. Many of them thought we had to continue our work. And thanks to the 3 regions, we set in motion this new project. We had a team of people who had managed competitive echo and was the best fit to continue with the new project. And so what we had to do was to determine all that had to be done in the framework of dynamization. So identify opportunities, assess the creation of projects, and also European calls, ensure that we would be present in business fairs, organize business to business appointments with potential clients, and so on. So realize that we needed a public-private partnership. We had public partners and private partners. So in 2019, we started working with Innovatica, Big Data, and Additive Valley. This was possible thanks to the funding of the Euro region. So in 2019, we created a brand called Plus Euro. Here we have the different members, the members that work in the clusters, and of course they contribute with their ideas, their initiatives, they feed into the cluster. This is just a little bit more information. Additive Valley has 15 members, Innovmedica 14, and Big Data 13. Here is the geographic numbers, 12 of them in Euskadi, 6 in Navarre, and 9 in New Aquitaine. And together they constitute all the 3 clusters. The crisis made it difficult for us to work together. We had to find a solution to the closure of borders. So very rapidly, we shifted to an online working method. We would meet on Tuesdays. We would meet online to collaborate. We wanted to focus on a different topic each Tuesday. So in one of the sessions, we talked about collaborative projects, shared projects, partnerships, responding to calls for tenders, identifying projects. We were also present in person in one of the regions in a technological center. So that was a visit that allowed us to be closer to that member and adapt our projects better for them. One of the goals of the cluster is to become an attractive and appealing entity for potential customers, for large companies. We invited potential clients. We invited companies that were very large and very important in our territory. The idea is to be attractive, to be able to adapt to their needs and to respond to their needs. There are different technologies of additive manufacturing. I'm talking about Additive Valley. And there are 23 in total, and we have been able to cover 18 of them thanks to our cross-border collaboration. And we also had thematic meetings in which we also addressed more technical or technological issues. We were able to identify different topics. Some of them were not ripe enough, if you will. So we decided to create a different project with the direct participation of the Euro region. And we defined 4 topics. We chose 4 big topics. And we worked with the methodology that I've just described. However, in comparison with competitive echo, in Compet'plus, we wanted to focus more on the innovation platform. And that's one of the big news with this new project, because we were able to work hand in hand with the companies to improve their competitiveness in mobility and energy, for example, which are 2 hot topics for the future. Agri-food is a 3rd topic, and creative industry is the 4th one. The budget was a little bit above 800,000 euros. We started in January 2020, and we will work until mid 2022. We have the Chamber of Commerce, Bayonne, Basque Country. We have Orchestra in charge of strategy. Sovena is in charge of Navarra, and the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Gipuzkoa, which implements the methodology throughout Euskadi and works on that ecosystem. Between the Chamber of Commerce of Bayonne and Basque Country and the Chamber of Commerce of Gipuzkoa, we created a cross-border Chamber of Commerce a few years ago called BRT. And so we worked with a joint approach, and we collaborate with each other. And this helps us improve communication, but also allows us to create new relations and new possibilities for collaboration throughout all the 3 territories. So it's about boosting competitiveness in 4 big topics: creative industry, agri-food, mobility, and energy, in all the 3 regions, New Aquitaine, Euskadi, and Navarra. It's true that as far as Portefa is concerned, in France, only Department 64 is included. Our idea is to work with New Aquitaine players to develop this dynamic further. This is how we have thought out our work at Compet'plus. On the one hand, we're working on identifying cross-border economic flows. My colleague Amandine will later talk to us about the work that has been carried out in the 4 areas. We also wanted to design 2 value chains. It's aggregations of companies and institutions that can help us cover all the value chain from the beginning to its end. For example, for big data, it's about working or processing data, optimizing or streamlining data, harnessing infrastructures, and also working in the service sector and cater to the needs of the different sectors as much as possible. It's about designing those 2 value chains and finding the players that can help us complete the chain and make it stronger. And the last objective is to innovation platform, we are going to look for entities that have demands and needs that can be responded by the two chains design. So we want to create a dialogue between the supply and the demand to facilitate solutions and have a short circuit of innovation. And lastly, you have the different names and email addresses on the screen, and you will receive these presentations. So if you need more information, just contact them. That's all for me. Thank you very much for your attention. And now I give the floor back to orchestra.
Icebreaker. So it's like I will ask everyone to join the Slido link that we share in the chat and vote. Like we wanted to know which of the thematic areas that we work either at Competitive Eco or that we are working at Compet'plus are you interested in? So just click the link and okay. So here we are seeing that people are voting, ICC or additive manufacturing, other people voting. Okay. Here, more votes. Okay, have 3 votes. Big data, I think, is the more important one now. Well, I see some changes. No one else voting. Okay. 5. We are going to open for discussion the second question. What other cross-border clusters initiative do you know of? And we already have an example that from someone of the audience who vote, that's cluster-based CV projects. You know, if anyone else knows another initiatives that are in other cross-border areas that could be of interest, that we could share, exchange experience, good practices, or that are interested in this for this project. Or if the Malmo Copenhagen Health Cluster, I don't know if now one of the people either for the Malmo Copenhagen Health Cluster or cluster-based CV projects wants to explain a little bit, or we wait till the end of the presentations to exchange out these practices. Okay, maybe we are going to go for the next questions. So Beñat explained that after Competitive Eco, in order to continue with the cross-border cluster, the original clusters that were established, we decided on a public-private partnership where we had funds from the public, and also the companies that were part of the cluster were paying a fee to be part of the consortium. So we were asking, is this the right model? Do you know of any other economic models, how we can sustain the cross-border clusters that are created? So we are asking again the audience if they could share with us their experience, or if they think this is the best model we can think of, or if they know from the other experience how it is their economic model. If not, we will leave the question open, and in the meantime, we will give the floor for Usue so that you can think of what could be the best economic model for continuing an European project or clusters collaboration. I will give the floor directly to Usue that is going to explain us. She's from Orchestra Institute in the Basque Country, partners of both of the projects, and they are the ones giving us all of the knowledge how to do this, crossing the strategies of all the regions and how we can manage to get smart specialization strategies in cross-border. So Sue, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think that the last question was the hard one. How are we supposed to sustain these cross-border clusters? So I think that I will be willing to hear from the floor as well, if there are any other ideas. And thank you and welcome everyone. I'm going to make this presentation in English. And I brought here some of our learnings around the smart specialization strategies in cross-border region. As Leire was pointing out, we are from Orchestra, the Basque Institute of Competitiveness. We are focused on researching in regional competitiveness. And our role in the project since 2016, since Competitive Eco, the first project that was developed, we've been focused on understanding how cross-border cooperation was performing and how was the process being held by the different actors. So in understanding a little bit more about cross-border cooperation. And what I'm gonna show you is the work we've been conducting together with my colleague, Mercedes Oleaga, and me during this time. So, what I'm going to bring to you is how this necessity of bringing to the process the risk-free concept emerged somehow. We found in 2016 that the risk-free concept and the cross-border cooperation were both sharing like the same challenge somehow. And this was the fragmentation of the innovation capacities across Europe, like the fragmentation. That means that all the innovation capacities were scattered across the European landscape, and when compared to other economies such as the United States or Asia, it appeared to be somehow not a very positive factor to develop innovation. So, and why is that? Because this can prevent exploitation of various types of economies and externalities, such as economies of scale or economies of scope. So it was the need to facilitate this critical mass and to foster the collaboration among European regions. So this fragmentation of the European capacities, which means that the capacities are all scattered around Europe, can be overcome somehow internally within the region, but also externally. When we talk about the internal part, it means that the region itself can somehow like focus all its efforts in certain areas, specific areas, in order to be more efficient. And externally, the region can also collaborate with the neighboring regions. So interregional collaboration is critical to overcome this fragmentation in innovation and to fully exploit the synergies in innovation. So as cross-border collaboration is a type of interregional collaboration, it may happen as well in the neighboring regions. So this was somehow like the seed by which we decided that the risk-free approach could be somehow useful for us to foster cross-border cooperation. At that time, it was before 2016, actually. It was in 2015, and then we decided to promote Competitive Eco. And well, the second question was, how are we supposed to do that? Well, our hypothesis was that the cross-border risk-free analysis could be relevant for fostering cross-border collaboration, and that it could somehow wanted test if it could connect like regional priorities, these efforts, these concentration efforts of the regions, with the business needs in order to foster innovation at the cross-border region, right? So with this hypothesis, we saw that the RIS3 is the notion behind the RIS3 is that we have some priorities based on competitive advantages within the regions, and that these priorities are based on the existing strengths and the future strengths of the region, both at the technological, business field, and so on, and that there were several stakeholders around those priorities. So mixing in the pot this concept with the need we had to foster cross-border collaboration, we decided that maybe there was a potential of the neighboring regions to grow through innovation based on the shared analysis or the cross-border analysis of the RIS3 strategies, in this case in the Navarre, Euskadi, and New Aquitaine regions. So this RIS3 analysis is what we did at the end in these two projects, and we have conducted this analysis in two moments in time. First in 2016, and second in 2020 within the framework of the second project, which is Compet'plus. But each time the analysis was different. In 2016, the analysis was based mainly in the newly born RIS3 strategies. At that time, in the different regions across Europe, the regions were involved in defining the RIS3 strategy for the first time in many cases. So there was like a little path of development in these regards. So the analysis drew different conclusions. First, the territories analyzed were facing different degrees of development of the RIS3 strategy. For example, while in the Basque Country, it was already working in concrete projects, Navarre had just published its RIS3 strategy, and Aquitaine was involved in this merging process of the different regions. In that time, they were merging Aquitaine with Poitou, Charente, Limousin, and so on. So they were in a different time. And then the three regions were having different interpretations of the key aspects of the RIS3. They had different meanings for vertical priorities, or the entrepreneurial discovery process, or the cross-cutting axis, or it took on different meanings for each of the regions. So it was something that showed us a lot in order to get to know how the innovation dynamics were taking place in each of the regions. But it was really useful to identify different potential areas for collaboration that were later taken into account in this bottom-up and process of selection of these potential areas. I'll show you later. And in 2020, the analysis of this RIS3, cross-border RIS3 analysis, has been very different, because there was already an experience in the three of the regions in the design and implementation of the RIS3 strategy. So the analysis has been very different, as I will later show you as well. So this is one slide that Beñat has shown you before, but this is only to highlight that the RIS3 analysis in the start to start a dialogue with the political representative of the three regions. So it was a very valuable input to start talking about which are the different interests that the policy had in each of the regions. And I think it was an opportunity for the first time we had them on board. We had the 3 regions and the political representatives all together in one table, and this was somehow the material we used with them to start the reflection. And later, as Beñat has already pointed out, the 3 cross-border innovation hubs that were set up were like financed in later stages, thanks to the commitment we had from this committee, this top-down committee or political committee that we set up at that time. So I think that in my point of view, it was very valuable, not only for the analysis, but only for the sustainability of the cross-border clusters. So here I want to stop and just launch you a question, that we have a question regarding the benefits from participating in these cross-border clusters. We would like to know, what do you think, or which are your perceived benefits of participating in cross-border clusters, if you have any idea of that. So I will leave the floor to Leire this time to launch the question through the Slido.
Yeah, again, it's like you have the question, what do you see as the benefits of participating in cluster or similar initiatives? We want to know, what do you think makes companies participate? What should we do to encourage? What should we offer? So we gave you this time like sort of a quiz. What do you see as the benefits? Like sense of information, share of best practices with others, the fact that you can share resources and participate in projects or in activities towards a common goal, working together, or other that we haven't think of. So go ahead and vote.
Yeah, thank you, Leire. How am I with the timing, Leire?
It's okay. Yeah, okay. Perfect.
Thank you.
So while you continue, we leave the question open for the rest of the persons to vote. So
thank you.
I will share the screen at the end to see the results of the people voting this question.
So I continue sharing my presentation, and we would really like to hear your opinions in these regards. Okay, so as I was saying, okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Oh, I can change the slide. I can't move on. So I will leave sharing, and I will do it again. And let's see if I'm able to do it. Sorry, everyone. Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay. So let's see if I can put it in presentation mode, and then I can change it. Okay. So in Compet'plus, as I was pointing out, the risk-free cross-border analysis was used in different terms, right? Because at that time in 2020, we had a path of development in risk-free. So the regions across Europe were facing different challenges at that time that were more linked to the implementation of those strategies. So what we did is to take like the 3 main phases of the risk-free strategy, which are, according to our research, the identification of priority thematic areas. Where are these regions working on or focusing on? How do we take these priority thematic areas and translate them into a roadmap for transformation of the economy of the region? And lastly, how do we implement these transformation activities into action plans, and finally in projects, right? So we did a research, my colleague Mercedes and me, and we tried to answer what was happening in each of the regions, in Navarre, in New Aquitaine, and in Euskadi, regarding these 3 stages. And concretely, we were digging into these challenges. How were happening these bottom-up strategies? That is, how was happening the entrepreneurial discovery process? This is how the different actors were interacting to identify new potential activities, and how were they informing to government about these new discovery areas, where were the capacities and learning mechanisms in the different actors of the territory, the government, the business, the cluster associations, and so on, if they were somehow they had the capacity to get involved in such processes. And finally, which were like the modes of governance, that is to say, how the decisions were taken, like how were the priority areas being selected, how were the transformation roadmaps were designed, and how were the different projects defined, for example. So this was the focus of our second milestone in the cross-border history analysis. Well, I'm not gonna go through all these slides. I'm gonna go through it very, very briefly, but with these slides, I want to show like we had this kind of comparative analysis between the three regions in which we had more complex Excel file, and where we were defining the different priorities in each of them. Of the regions, and what we came out with was that in the three regions there was an interest, and there were some priorities or strengths focused in the food industry or food chain, in the creative and cultural industries, and also in the renewable energies and resources, which were our priorities in which Compet'plus wanted to work. So this was a confirmation somehow of our first guess in the project. Then we wanted to research on how were happening this translation from the priority areas to roadmaps in each of the regions. And very briefly, I'm going to highlight like one element from each of the regions. But for example, in Navarre, we saw that they were implemented these roadmaps by challenge teams that were somehow like with public partnership, but also many private actors were participating. In New Aquitaine, there was a centrality or a central role from collaborative institutions such as clusters and professional associations in defining these roadmaps. And finally, Basque Country was relying more in a life strategy that was changing over the time. Okay. So finally, what did happen when they were thinking about how to were implementing these transformation activities? While again, I'm going to highlight one of the elements in each of the regions, but in Navarre, what we saw is that they were giving a focus, or they were focusing on the interdepartmental coordination of the government in order to transform these activities in action plans. They were relying very much in this coordination between public departments. In New Aquitaine, one of the features that we wanted to highlight is that they were relying on cross-border cooperation as a lever for innovation, which is quite new for the rest of when compared to the rest of the regions. And in the Basque Country, the history strategy was influencing very intensively the rest of the policies, such as the cluster policy of the innovation and technology policy. These are very much like the points I wanted to highlight from our research, but you can find out more in our publications, which I can later send you if you are interested in. And well, you already have seen this slide as well, but this analysis somehow helped us in confirming that the selected areas were those that were a policy priority within the three regions. Then it helped us to understand that the business and the institutional dynamics in each of the priority areas, how these institutions were working. So to be able to connect the different dynamics from the three regions. And then it helped us to identify the relevant actors with whom to connect, to start thinking about these innovation platform in those areas, as Beñat was pointing out, the creative industries, the food, and mobility, and energy. So my last slide. Yeah, finally, I wanted to show you that how this cross-border analysis can be used as well. We have seen that this cross-border cooperation can be based on common strengths, based on a cross-border risk-free analysis. We have evidence. We've been working on that since 2016. We think it's a useful approach to start fostering collaboration. But beyond that, we think that this analysis can help also fostering at the institutional level cross-border collaboration. So this analysis actually has been used by the EGCT, by the Euro region of Navarre, Aquitaine, and Euskadi for setting up their strategy. So we think this is a very interesting application of this analysis. We leave open an open question for you. We leave the floor open for anyone who wants to have a say on that. Do you think that is there any place for a cross-border strategy which goes beyond this analysis and touches a little bit more the institutional level? So I leave this question open for you, and I just pass on the word to Leire. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Usue. That's the question. Is like, is there really a place for cross-border strategies? As you mentioned, we are using your work in our work daily at the Euro region, so we consider those the sectors we have to put into advance with call for projects for companies of the 3 territories to apply and to develop joint projects in those areas. But now I'm just going to share the results of the question. So what do you see as the benefits of participating in clusters and similar cross-border initiatives? And I think everyone voted for aligning activities to achieve effective results and sharing resources to compatible goals. So the part like not only sharing experience, but also developing joint projects, sharing results, and being stronger together. So I think it really rounds up what we all think. I don't know if in this part there is any questions or anyone who wants to react to the last open question that Usue asked.
Yeah, maybe we can wait for the rest of the event, but we would really like to hear your opinions on that. If anyone has any experience on that, it would be really helpful for the work we are doing regarding risk-free analysis at the cross-border region. So yeah, thank you.
So thank you, Sue. And then we are going to give the floor to Amandine. She works at the Chamber of Commerce of Bayonne Basque Country. So the French partner of the project, and they are developing a work in measuring cross-border flows, because it's really interesting to know which are the sectors, the innovative sectors, the smart specialization sectors that we can work on, but we also have to have the companies, but also measure how the flows, the commerce works between the regions. Are we going to a third country to buy products that we can buy next door? So we are going to give the floor to Amandine to explain us the methodology and the results of their work. Amandine, if you can, yeah, thank you.
Bonjour à tous. Alors, je vais vous mettre la présentation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my presentation. I will be speaking French. I think you can see my screen already. So yes, as Larry was saying, we have conducted an analysis within the framework of the Compet'plus program to analyze the economic flows and exchanges in between territories, in between cross-border regions. So we've analyzed what we call Iparralde, the French territory, and the Spanish territories, Euskadi and Navarre. So with regards to the methodology that was used, we utilized a local economy modeling tool that had been developed by a company, a consultancy company from France called Utopia, which helped us identify some key aspects. We were able to quantify cross-border flows and also look at what kinds of exchange could take place both between Iparralde and Euskadi Navarre, between Iparralde and the rest of the world, and between Euskadi, Navarre, and the rest of the world, as you can see on the right side of the screen. We have different indicators, for example, the production in euros, to know what is being produced or manufactured and the jobs that are created in the different regions. The objective is to assess what is consumed locally, what how much of the local production is used or consumed locally, how much is exported to other regions of the world, and what is imported. I will start by showing you the flows. This is Iparralde, Euskadi, and Navarre, and the different activity sectors. In green, you have Iparralde, yellow is Euskadi and Navarre, and the pink bubbles are the local production. The blue bubbles is the local demand. On the bottom side, you have the imports, and on the left top side is the imports, the exports, sorry. For Euskadi and Navarre, the production amounts to 163 million euros. That is the total production in that territory. 147 billion for the south area, and 13 billion euros in Iparralde in the north side. What's interesting about this is the exchange between territories, which are the two arrows in the middle. We see that Euskadi and Navarre sell 431 million euros of its production to Iparralde, and from Iparralde to Euskadi Navarre, we have 273 million euros. The flows between these territories are real, but I think they are relatively low because for Euskadi and Navarre, the production that is exported up north is a very low proportion of its total production. The Iparralde production that is sold or transported to Euskadi Navarre is only 2% of its total production. So I think these leads to the conclusion that there is some exchange, but there's certainly a great potential for growth when it comes to these interregional flows. You see that imports are 52% of the demand in Iparralde, 56% of the production in Euskadi and Navarre is also imported. So more than half the demand for both territories is imported from the outside. Almost the same goes for exports. A little bit more than half their production is exported to other regions of the world. I will now analyze the 4 topics that have been presented and that have been worked on in the framework of the Compet'plus project. We have agri-food. Let us remind ourselves that the agri-food production in Iparralde and Euskadi and Navarre represents 21.9 million euros or billion euros, and that is 14% of the total production. On the right-hand side, you have the value chain. That is the different sectors that we have worked on, that we have analyzed. On the left-hand side, you have the same flow chart that we saw before. Now, if we analyze the exchange between the 2 territories, the arrows in the middle, once again, we can see that the production in agri-food for Iparralde, only 5% of it is exported to Euskadi and Navarre, 115 million euros, and Euskadi and Navarre exports a total value of 85 million euros to Iparralde, which represents 0.4% of its total production. In this case, the flow is stronger from north to south than from south to north. Now, if we analyze imports and exports, we find that the volumes are, of course, lower than what we've seen so far, 44% imports and 45% exports. Just to name an example, I'm going to focus on one of the categories, a product that is imported a lot, which is compound. It's a product that is very strong in our market, very strong activity, which is feedstuffs. Now, moving on to cultural and creative industries, 5.6 billion euros, that is 4% of the total production. We have cross-border exchanges that are very low, 364,000 euros from Iparralde to Euskadi and Navarre, and 18 million euros from Euskadi, Navarre to Iparralde. So that is a minimum part of the production in both territories. So there is a very low level of exchange, cross-border exchange in these industries. As far as import and exports go, we have higher numbers, especially if we compare it with agri-foods. 67% of the demand in Iparralde is imported, and 56% of the demand in Euskadi, Navarre is imported. 67% of the production in New Aquitaine is exported. regarding mobility, in terms of production, it amounts to 21.1 billion euros. It's the second largest industry or sector after agri-food, representing 13% of the total production in both territories. The cross-border exchange is relatively higher in both directions. In this case, New Aquitaine or Iparralde exports 4% of its total production to Euskadi Navarre, 52 million euros, as you can see on the screen, and 46 million from Euskadi Navarre to Iparralde, that is 0.2%. It's interesting to look at exports or imports. 70% of local demand, regardless of the territory, is imported and 66% is exported. I will finish with the energy industry, which is the fourth topic. Energy production in Euskadi and Navarre is estimated to be 7.6 billion euros for Euskadi, Navarre, and New Aquitaine, as a matter of fact. As was the case with the creative industry, we have minimum exchange no more than 0.1% of total production, total local production in all territories. 561,000 euros is exported from New Aquitaine to Euskadi and Navarre, and only 8 million in the other direction. So this is a very low percentage of the production in both territories. Imports, this is the sector that has the largest degree of import. 71% of the local demand is imported. 54% of the production in Euskadi Navarre is exported. So it's almost half the production. Half the production is exported. And finally, these elements help us assess the existing cross-border exchanges or flows. They allow us to evaluate how much production is exported or imported. There might be sectors or industries that we should take a look at, and I'm sure there are other topics that we could work on to find other possibilities for exchange between the territories. To sum up, 50% of the local demand is imported for all three territories, with higher percentages in some of the sectors, over 70% in the energy sector, 70 or 60% for creative and cultural industries, 40% for agro-food. So for us, it would be interesting to diversify the supply, satisfy the local demand to be less dependent on imports and reduce the imports, and at the same time diversify the supply by making it more complete and making it more competitive in our local market. As for exports, we have seen that New Aquitaine, Euskadi, and Navarre exports half of global production throughout all the sectors. The percentage of the exports is higher for mobility, 65%, 57% for creative and cultural industries, 54% in the energy sector, and 44% in agri-food. So we want to make the supply more dense. We need to reorient the local supply, make it more present in our territories to improve or increase the local market share. So this shows that all three cross-border territories have a common interest to get to know each other better, get to know each other's market and needs in order to better cater to the demand and improve the supply. So this is it for the cross-border analysis. And now I hand the floor back to Leila.
Amandine, je pense que c'est un analyse très intéressant qui montre.
Thank you very much, Amandine. I think that was a highly interesting analysis, which shows how much we need data to be able to put actions into place in the future to work with the political sector and also the private sector. And then see what synergies can be created and what we can do to move on together. I would like to open the floor to the audience. Is there anyone who would like to share their experience from their region? Do you have an experience, an opinion that you want to share? Just open your mic or raise your hand. And if not, I will just hand the floor to Roman Waterfair, one of the cross-border clusters that was created as part of the first project, Competitive Echo. So I would like to ask him first. Well, first of all, I would like to thank him for being with us today. And I would like to ask him to share their experience with us. Why is he taking the floor and why he wants to work in cross-border cooperation? Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my experience. But I think it's not only cross-border, but it's about our Euro region as a whole. My name is Roman. We're working in UPI, which is an entity that we created a few years ago. We work on artificial intelligence applied to energy and transportation. So at UP, we wanted to develop our activities in Euskadi and Navarre. In 2016, 2017, we had the opportunity to work with a speed up program fostered by the Basque government. It was an initiative to attract technology companies from across the world to collaborate with the industrial fabric, which is a very strong sector in our territory. So starting from there, we began our work. This program, this startup acceleration program, provided us a great deal of assistance. We worked across different cities of our territory. We interviewed training centers, universities to get to know the whole ecosystem. After this, the Basque government suggested that we create an entity called UPI, which is a subsidiary that we created in 2018. So now we have one company in France, one company in the Basque country. So it's an international approach. we created this company with the help of SPRI, the help of the cross-border Chamber of Commerce, BRTN, which help us with all the paperwork. As of today, OP is 8 years old, and after creating this cross-border entity, I think we see cross-border activities on our daily basis. It's almost 30% of our turnover. We have developed relationships with technological entities that have become our partners. We have Connecting Blue in Pamplona, which works with connected objects and connected things. We also work with the University of Deusto, the University of Mondragon. They help us in hiring personnel. We also cooperate with industrial stakeholders. They help us develop solutions. Right now, we're working on a bus onboard system. A great deal of our turnover comes from the automobile industry in Navarre and around the city of Bilbao. So we have a strong commitment to develop our activities in our region. We're very small, but we think that the cross-border hindrances are mental hindrances, are psychological hindrances. I think we have a lot in common. We think there are no difficulties in working together, in working on a cross-border level. And that's why the cross-border hubs, which foster encounters and relationships, are essential to us. We observe in the field that we need to create links and relationships. Our society is highly competitive, and paradoxically, we decided that we needed to create human links, human relationships. And we cannot do this with analysis and studies, but rather by meeting up, by meeting each other. As a matter of fact, we have had some difficulties as of lately, and online meetings or video calls are not sufficient to foster those relationships. We need contact, we need to be in person, and that's how you build trust, really. So we've made great efforts. We're aware that many of us have devoted a great deal of efforts to organize in-person events as much as possible in order to maintain and further develop those relations by meeting in person. To us, the essential element, the key element of a collaboration, or in order to have an effective, sustainable collaboration, you need contact, you need physical contact and meeting each other in person. For us, this activity, this development, I don't even know what to call it anymore, is essential. We're witnessing a great time, a great momentum for that development. The Basque Country has created an intelligence hub. It's an initiative that is under the lead of Mrs. Tapia, and we were asked to act as administrators of the organization. And for us, that was a request that shows their commitment with the cross-border collaboration, and it shows how present we are on a regional level. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
This example to share about how companies can collaborate and how cross-border cooperation among partners can foster the companies and the relations between the regions. So I don't know if we have other questions from the audience, or if someone that was participating and before shared that he knows of other examples, if in other cross-border projects could share their experience either from the Malmo Copenhagen Health Cluster or cluster-based cross-border projects that were mentioned. Know if anyone has any other question. If not, I will open a question that I will address to anyone, but maybe in particular either to Beñat or Beatriz that work in the dynamization of the clusters. Like, what do you think is the good practices? Like, how do you think the companies interact? Are they interested? What do they gain from this collaboration, either in Clustero or in the initiatives that we are already like building? Because maybe you can explain, like, we are in a dynamic to create another cross-border cluster in creative industries. So how do you see if the companies are motivated, if they see an advantage in doing so?
Oui, moi je dirais que d'une part, bon, sur les entreprises et les centres technologiques qui participent, effectivement, il y a cette envie aussi de partager, de pouvoir aussi se complémenter, hein, avoir des activités, des profils très complémentaires.
Yes, I think there is a will to share experiences and good practices. We have testimonials from the healthcare sector. We have testimonials that show how much we've catered to the needs of these 6 centers. So there has been a good cooperation between those who are designing, those who are creating prototypes, those who are manufacturing. As Romain said, it's also about exchanging opinions and getting to know each other, which at the end of the day, that help us grow together. Some members have shared their projects, others have used the opportunities. I'm thinking of the main BO program, additive manufacturing. We had 2 companies in New Aquitaine that were selected for those programs. The system, the topics are not old topics. They're innovation topics. We're talking about topics that are have not quite landed in the market yet. So it's really interesting to work with the 3 regions, the 3 territories. We discovered potential areas. We saw and we continue to see how the market grows, how it develops between the 3 territories.
I don't know if Beatriz, you want to add something?
Bon, je rajouterai un peu que je pense que l'initiative a beaucoup de succès aussi par bon, tout ce qui a dit Beñat, évidemment, mais aussi le format qu'on a choisi qui est très dynamique, la façon d'être.
Yes, well, I fully agree with Beñat. We have we hold meetings that allow us to share experiences. And I think that within a short amount of time, we have a tremendously dynamic exchange of information. And that's really useful for the companies.
The companies are really interested, like, for participating in most of the events, all the Tuesday meetings, and I think they are more happy now that we are starting to do like in-person, like meeting people, visiting the companies. We have another event on Tuesday, and that's the part, like the networking, because it's really nice to be able to meet online every week, but I think it's like the companies really enjoy having the opportunity to meet in person, to do the networking, to go to visit the companies, the technologies, and that's where the business between them emerged, the joint projects, and also like all the interactions. So I don't know if there is any other question, and if not, I will thank you all for having participated in this side event of the European Week of the Regions and Cities. We were really glad. We have a participant that wants to ask a question. It was like, yeah, Mr. Kitty Dumikseki. If you, I open the floor to you if you want to ask a question or make a comment.
Okay, thank you. I am Kitty Dumitsky, and I have one question. Is this analysis available on the internet?
Yes, in our website from the Compet'plus project, we have the analysis made by orchestra, and we are going to publish also the analysis of the cross-border flows. And moreover, it's like we'll send you the link to all the participants with all the presentation, the links to download the analysis done by orchestra, and also the cross-border flows, and also the recording of the session.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if there is no other questions, like as I just mentioned, we'll send you all the links for the relevant information, presentations, recording, and all the information about the other project, where there were also a lot of publications made, and information about the clusters that are working now, because we are just launching a new website where you will be able also to find information about the companies that are taking part in the cluster. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon, and do not hesitate to contact us if you want more information about the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.